It's just bad teams getting talented 19-year-olds. There's a reason I spend one segment on the NBA draft and 1 or 2 months on the NFL draft. In the NFL, you're getting 22 and 23-year-old grown men. In the NBA, you're getting teenagers who are not even emotionally developed and can't drink at the team hotel when they get there. Also, football players at all levels are generally coached harder than basketball players, so it's an easier transition to a dominant NFL coach over a dominant NBA coach. The NFL drafts are really pretty consistent. I mean, some have better quarterbacks, but there's good players everywhere, good players undrafted. NBA drafts are not consistent. They are wildly speculative. Some are terrible. There have been terrible drafts that have 3 good players, no stars. Then there's been drafts that have 7 or 8 all-star level players. But it's basically 19-year-olds, not emotionally developed, going to bad teams. Most disappear into the ether. Chet Holmgren's a great example. He was the number 1 high schooler. He goes to Gonzaga. I don't know what he's going to be. Skinny and tall. He's very skilled. He doesn't really look like any player in the league. He will score in the NBA because he's just really tall, can put the ball on the deck and score. I have no doubts he'll be in the NBA and score a bunch of points. He can block shots, not terribly quick. Is he twitchy? I don't know what he is. He is, though, the NBA draft. You're just going to draft him because you see the skill and you see something, but you're not really sure how he can defend. Is he physical enough? Will he be able to handle doubles? I don't know what he is. I just know he's really skilled and really skinny and really tall. But that is the NBA draft. There is no Shaq in this draft. There is no LeBron James in this draft. There's no Ja Morant, although there's a kid at Purdue named Jaden Ivey who's a little better shooter potentially as Ja, but he's not quite the floor leader or the distributor of Ja Morant. He's not Ja Morant, but he's got a nice shot. He'll probably play the 2, and he'll score a lot of points. He's hyper athletic, and people will like him. I feel like I'd take him number 1, but he'll probably go 5 or 6. So I don't spend a ton of time on it. I love the draft lottery, but it's mostly 19-year-olds going to egregiously bad organizations. Joy with the news. Take over the second half of the game. And, it's funny. Years ago, I remember this was like 25, 30 years ago. I was at, some event or something. And some parents were talking about they wanted to make sure that, the school saw their kid, the big school saw their kid. And I said, trust me, if your kid's good enough, he'll make the pros. Figure out a way to make the pros. Too many parents think you have to go a certain route for your kid to be successful. They've done studies that it's much more important to send your kid to a college that fits than Princeton. But it's really hard to tell parents that, keeping up with the Joneses, got to go to a blue blood. So here's the top 12 players, in my opinion. We can argue about it, the bottom, but the top 12 players left. Some would have, Andrew Wiggins in there, but the top 12 players left. Luka didn't go to an American college. Jaylen Brown went to California. Marcus Smart, Oklahoma State. Steph Curry, Davidson. Klay Thompson, Washington State. Jimmy Butler, Marquette. Now, Spencer Dinwiddie, Colorado. There are a lot of football schools in there. And you say, well, there's a Kentucky guy and a Duke guy. Yes. 2 from college blue bloods. Well, what about the Nova and Michigan State guys? No, they went in the second round. Doubted, overlooked. Much like NFL quarterbacks, shouldn't they all come from Ohio State? I mean, Alabama? Shouldn't they all be from, the blue bloods? Notre Dame? 5 stars? Go to a linear progression to college? And then you go to the NFL. But that's not the way it is. A couple years ago, there were 3 quarterbacks starting from North Carolina State and 2 or 3 from Cal. Because to be a professional athlete is not just about talent. It's about intelligence. It's about cohesiveness and maturity. And it's about toughness. Pro sports are hard, and they're tough. And Jimmy Butler's tough. And Draymond Green is tough. And Jalen Brunson is tough. Of the top 12 players in the game right now, still playing, 0 are number 1 picks. 0 are number 2 picks. Of the 4 guys from blue blood basketball programs, 2 were overlooked. They're second-round guys. And it just goes to show you, once again, you would think you see this all the time in the NFL. Look at all the great quarterbacks. Russell Wilson, 3rd round, Wisconsin. Tom Brady, 6th round. Joe Burrow had to transfer. Big Ben, Miami of Ohio. Aaron Rodgers, junior college. Matt Ryan, Boston College. Dak, 4th round. Jalen Hurts, 2nd round, doubted. Drew Brees wasn't offered by the Texas schools, had to go to Purdue. Time after time after time after time, when we get to the playoffs, the hard slog of going through the playoffs, the tough guys survive. It's not the blue bloods. It's not the pampered. It's not all Kentucky guys. It's not all Duke guys. For years and years, it's changed now. But I can remember about a 10 to a 15-year period where Duke guys stunk in the NBA. I don't even need to mention names, but they were getting overdrafted because they were Duke guys. But Duke guys had the best coach, like Alabama players have the best coach, and the quarterbacks at Alabama never get hit. And the wide receivers at Alabama, there's like 3, so you can't double any of them. You know, in college, the blue blood programs, you have the best players, the best coaches, the best facilities, the most time to throw as a quarterback. It doesn't work that way in the NFL. And so I thought it was interesting. Jason Tatum's from a blue blood school, and Bam Adebayo is from a blue blood school. But Jalen Brunson, Villanova, 2nd round. Draymond Green, Michigan State, that's a blue blood, 2nd round. You'll get there, but toughness is undervalued. Mettle, coachability, chip on the shoulder, totally undervalued. The CFOs that get it, get it. The CFOs that don't. Head to NetSuite. I imagine a little bit of a glorious night for you watching Boston stumble in the second half, specifically the third quarter.
Well, listen, I'm not anti-Celtics to the level I once was. I thought Danny Ainge was running a bit of a Ponzi scheme, always talking about the future, and now he's gone. And by the way, you know, Tatum and Brown were his, give him credit. Now, one would argue Brad Stevens in a summer made better moves than Danny Ainge had made in the previous 5 years, flipping Kimba for Al Horford. That seems to have worked out quite well. But I'm not as anti-Boston as I once was. But here's what I liked about what I saw last night. And, Colin, we acknowledge in the NBA all the time that there are guys that are legendary regular season performers.
Yeah.
That flatly every year in the playoffs get a little bit worse.
Yes.
Karl Malone was one of these guys.
Yeah.
Karl Malone's regular season resume is one of the, 8 greatest players ever. His postseason resume is not that, so he gets dinged. Obviously, James Harden is one of those guys. We don't ever talk about the reverse. What about the only actual playoff Jimmy in sports? Not the beloved Jimmy Garoppolo, but Jimmy Butler. A guy who in the regular season, how about this, Colin? In the last 6 years, Jimmy Butler in the regular season has 0 40-point games. But in the last 3 playoff runs, he has 5 of them.
Yeah.
A guy who went toe-to-toe with LeBron for the first 4 games of an NBA Finals. Last year, obviously, was bad for the Heat. And now this year, he just annihilated Jason Tatum and the Celtics all on mid-range jumpers and free throws. So I have a lot of respect for what the Heat have built. I have a lot of respect for them fighting for the 1 seed. And I have a lot of respect for Jimmy Butler, who doesn't really seem to care about much other than get me to the playoffs and see what I can do.
Yeah.
And, I thought that third quarter was a tour de force. They played perfect defense for 6 minutes and flipped the game. And, Colin, by the way, if the Heat had lost that game, what's the narrative? Oh, my God, they lost at home. Boston didn't have Smart or Horford. The Heat are sunk. Now the Heat feel like they're in good position to win the series.
All right, so you were very early on this. Very early on Luka and Dallas being the dark horse.
The earliest.
The earliest, exactly. Not early.
Not the dark horse, the favorite.
Okay.
I picked them to go to the finals 2 months ago. Tried to get you to ride with me. You didn't want to do it, but go ahead.
All right. So you have them, I imagine, beating Golden State, which has far more offensive depth. They've got far more playoff experience. Many would argue the elite coach. Yeah. What is it about you like Dallas to win this series?
Oh, yeah, I like Dallas to win this series, and I like Dallas to win this series easily. I think it's Dallas in 5. Here's the deal, Colin. So the simple explanation is that, I told you 2 months ago that 15 years ago we saw a 22-year-old transcendent talent who, looks for the best pass for, he looks for the best shot, who's 6'8", who's stronger than he even looks. Carry, somewhat of a hodgepodge cast of no other All-Stars to the